The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep open-minded conversation. I'm the one they call Shayn, and this week for you guys, I have somebody that I actually was a guest last week on his show, so I figured that I would flip it around, bring him on the show, and put him on the other side of the mic, and talk about some of his experiences, some of his ideas and everything on the paranormal. And of course, we're both Midwest boys, so of course that's always a lot of fun to be able to talk about stuff that's within our own areas. But before we get into the show today, just a couple of announcements and stuff. Last week I announced on the show, but I just want to make sure that I announced it again. The Bizarre Teas Etsy store is now up and running. So if anybody wants to go and check that out and order your guys self some tea, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you guys want to go and get some reoccurring monthly tea, you guys can always go and join the Bizarre Teas Tea Club, which is one of the new Patreon tiers, in addition to some of the new edits that I have done to the other Patreon tiers. And the last thing you guys can do for Bizarre Teas is make sure you guys are entered into the giveaway. That giveaway is for a sample of both of the flavors that I have. I keep saying a sample, but I'm planning on sending you guys, of course, a full bag of it. So all you guys have to do to enter that one is go and follow the Instagram. Make sure you guys are on the following list. And at the end of the month, I'm going to do a random number generator and pull somebody from the following list. And that person, of course, will win the prize. And the last other thing I want to talk to you guys about is I would like to do some type of localized meetup, give back to you guys since you guys have made it so this show is possible. So if you're anybody that is within driving distance, hopefully, of the Metro Detroit area, please get a hold of me through any means of contact, be it email, social media, even the hotline, whatever you guys want to do. I want to get a little bit of a head count, see if this is something I can pull off. Maybe we can do a squatch hike, maybe we can do some type of paranormal investigation, or have a barbecue or something. But I'd like to be able to do some more with you guys, get you guys more involved in everything with the community. So if you guys are in the area, just shoot me a message, let me know, and I would greatly appreciate it. But before we get into the show, just a quick reminder, this podcast has a strong focus on community engagement, so I encourage all listeners to share their own experiences and research on the show. That said, if you have an encounter or experience you would like to share on the show or have me investigate, please email me at ommencounterreports@outlook.com, or you guys can give me a call on the OMM Encounter Reports hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And depending on what you want to do with your encounter, whether you want it to be investigated or you want it to be shared on a future show, just let me know within the email or within the voice message, and I will get back to you as soon as I can about it, and we can kind of go from there. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you guys can email me at inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com. And every single thing that I mention is all available on the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, John Radtke from Dairyland Frights podcast. How's it going today, man?
It is going really well, Shayn. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolute pleasure to have you come on this side after you being so kind as to invite me as a guest on your show. So also to the listeners out there, don't forget to go and check out that episode too over on your feed.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know when this will come out, but we just dropped our episode of Shayn, Inquiries of Our Reality, on November 10th of 2024. So there you go. Check it out. We had a good time. It was pretty fun.
And I believe this will be coming out, well, this coming week from when we're recording. So it'll be last week's episode in your feed. So it'll be quick and easy for everybody to find too.
Nice.
But for anybody that may not know who you are, what you do, what exactly Dairyland Frights podcast is, why don't you let them know a little bit about your background and a little bit about what you get into on the show?
Yeah, so thanks, Shane. One of the things that people always ask me, like, how you got into it and like, why do a podcast on the paranormal? Because it's kind of weird, you see a lot of freaky stuff. That's exactly why I got into it.
It's the fun stuff.
I've always been into that. I'm the weird little kid. Like in high school, I was like the weird little kid reading like ghost books and stuff. And people are like, man, that dude's really weird. Luckily, I found a bunch of my friends actually, I've known my friends since elementary and middle school, and we're all a bunch of weirdos like this. And we used to talk paranormal all the time. And then I would meet people at my work and we would talk paranormal. And then it's just, and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to talk about this. I think I'm going to do a podcast and, bring some guests on, do some scary stories, try to get a lot of different viewpoints of the paranormal. And that's kind of how I started, because again, the biggest thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, the biggest thing about the paranormal is one of two things. One, you got the skeptics. They're like, yeah, right, there's a ghost. Yeah, right, there's a Bigfoot. Yeah, right, there's UFOs. And the people who are maybe to the far end, who are like, yeah, there's a UFO in my closet. Like, okay.
It's just like a lot of things, though. It seems like it's either one extreme or in the other. And it's like the middle ground is where you want to be, but everybody's always one extreme or the other. Because at least being somebody that dives into this stuff, I can't say it enough that it's like not every bump in the night is a ghost. It's like if you want to get somewhere with the research, you have to get rid of anything that it could possibly be that's real world. And once you have something that's unexplainable, then you got something. Then you got to research it. But if every single bump you hear is a ghost, then you're not really getting anywhere with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really comes down to demystifying it, because I've spoken to people like yourself all over the country, different parts of the world. And, we're all alike. We just want to find out why, right? We want to find out, what is beyond the veil, or whatever you want to say. And also maybe help people communicate with a lost one or something like that, or at least get some truth in there, right? Because, a lot with the government, no, that was a weather balloon. That's swamp gas. That's, some dude in a costume. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. You're spending millions of dollars of taxpayers' money on UFO research. And now you're like, cat's out of the bag, people. Yes, there are aliens and UFOs. Like, thanks, guys.
But on the other side now, it's like after diving into this so long and knowing like you don't trust the government when you're in this line of research, now it's like they're trying to throw stuff back to you, and it's like you want to believe it because you want to be like, all right, cool, they're giving us something. But on the other side, it's funny that it's like the average person who normally didn't pay attention to UFOs and stuff are like, oh my God, there's aliens they're talking about, or they're just not really paying attention to it at all. And everybody that's like in this stuff is like, oh no, it's all fake. They're all just trying to like push this down some controlled narrative. Like everybody that's been in the community doesn't believe any of the government stuff other than like some of the footage. But even like the alien bodies they had from Mexico, it's like nobody believed those.
Right. So in my podcast, what I try to do is give a variety of people, from psychic mediums to paranormal investigators to paranormal investigation teams to UFO researchers to authors to scientists I try to bring as many people together as I can, other podcasters who love this and love to talk about it and everything. So really, when you listen to Dairyland Frights, the thing you'll find out is a good variety and that we have a lot of fun with it. It's not that we joke around, but sometimes you can't take it too seriously because it just gets like,
you have to lighten it up when you start getting into some of the really dark topics. So sometimes you have to have somewhat of a dark sense of humor to be into this stuff sometimes.
Like when I've had a Satanist on, I joked with her, Hollywood thinks that you're in the basement in a pentagram with a baby and you're dumping the blood of the baby on your head. And, right?
That's the Hollywood witches. The real witches aren't the ones who. It's the Hollywood witches that are doing the crazy stuff. So they got to pretend like that's everybody, so that they don't look so crazy.
Yeah. And when I've had witches on, and too, they're like, no. But what's going to be more interesting, Shayn? Having a witch say, "Well, I want to make the environment better. I want to make people better. I want to work with people. I want to help people. I want to." That would be pretty boring. People would be like, "Oh, so wait a minute, what is this about? Everyone's working together to make a better place?" Nah, I want blood. I want death. I want, okay.
It's all the occult stuff that gets mixed into it that's on the other side. Because it's like most of the witches that I've had on the show, most of them are like, they use names like natural witches and stuff like that, where it's a matter of like using natural herbs to try to do things, try to help people, try to help the environment, communicate with the environment. And then it's like when you start getting into the occult side of witch stuff, like not just the herbalist side, but like the ritualistic side, that's when you start getting into the kind of like off the deep end type stuff. But especially like when you get into the Hollywood stuff, I feel like a lot of that blood and darkness and all that kind of stuff that kind of gets thrown in with that is more so mixing in with more of the other conspiracies of like adrenochrome and like trying to harvest the energy of other things. Because just like most things, everybody wants to view things as being either white or black, but more often something is gray. And it's magic is one of those things that it's not necessarily inherently good or evil. It's about the intention of the user of it, because something can be used for good, and that same spell or ritual can also be used for bad, depending on which way the person's trying to use it. Like magic isn't inherently good or evil. It's all gray until somebody uses it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not to say there's not bad people out there, and not to say that there hasn't been sacrifices of innocent people. I'm sure there has. And, there has been, stories gotten out there, but they just lump everyone together. And that to me is ridiculous, because that's not true. It's just like good and bad people, and
same with aliens, same with most of these beings. Everybody wants to kind of group them in as the same, but I think that there's a spectrum within everything, because just like with people, you can't assume every person's going to be good or bad. Same with ghosts, same with extraterrestrials, same with cryptids, same with anything you're dealing with. I think that there's a spectrum, and you can't just assume that every single one is going to be the same as the last one you encountered.
Yeah, absolutely. So really on my podcast, when you're listening to it, you're going to have some fun. You're going to hear people like joke around as well as get serious about things, kind of talk about what they go through. I mean, one thing I found out with paranormal investigators, 90% of them are doing it on their own dime. So they work their regular job, and then they use that money to fund their trip, their equipment, and most of them are not making money at it, if at all.
I mean, that's across the board. That's same with like cryptid researchers, with ufologists. Like most of this type of research is all done on people's own pocket and stuff. Like it's hard to make money in this field because it's not something that's really intended to make money off of. It's something that is supposed to be discovered and researched. It's not supposed to be a cash cow,
Correct.
And if it becomes a cash cow, that's when you fall into other issues where, you may have a show that had great integrity, but as soon as the investors get involved, then it's like, all right, we want to entertain people. So every show we need there to be a bump. We need there to be this. We need there to be that. And a lot of people beat up on the ghost shows, but, I don't think it's necessarily the investigators. Of course, you could say that they sold out at that point, but on the other side, when you have investors barking down your neck saying something needs to happen, otherwise we're not going to fund another season, you kind of do what you have to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're in a contract.
Yeah. So it's kind of some of the bigger investigators who are making money at this, they're every day kind of forced into to be like, okay, someone pretend like they saw something in the corner. And, and after a while it gets a little old. And I think people like us are smart enough to go like, okay, you're just fishy now. And maybe that's the time to leave and move on. But, I get it. If you're in that situation and that's your main money and your main source, you're going to continue to do everything possible to keep it going, which is good and bad. It's good. The name gets out there and people get more used to it and demystified. but also it's bad because you have, like I said, I'm not a big Zach Baggins fan.
Takes away from a lot of the true research.
Yeah, it takes away from a lot of the true research. The people who are actually on their own dime driving to another state to find out this haunted area to research. And I've had a lot of people too who will go into homes, and people who are generally scared there's something in their home and they have to go in and, hopefully debunk it. And if not, hopefully get those people help, because there are a lot of paranormal investigators told me on my podcast, they'll go in and they'll be like, oh, this person has some mental issues and they need therapy. And some of the paranormal investigation teams have licensed therapists or know of licensed therapists to put in touch. But there are those, not a lot, but there are those ones where they're like, there's something wrong in this house. Like, I can't debunk it. I can't figure it out. There's something evil in this house. And, a lot of them told me, like, they tell them, you need to leave. You need to go and sell this house. And they're like, we can't. Like, we're deep into this. So again, there is people like that right now as we're talking. They're sitting in a house where they're just scared every day. And I think that's just terrible that they have to live through that, because you can't just think of your house right now. I couldn't be like, okay, everybody out. We'd have to be like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to sell this house? So that's interesting to me.
We will be right back after this brief commercial break. But just a quick reminder, if you guys want to stay up to date on the show, you guys can always go and follow Inquiries of Our Reality and Open Minds Media on Instagram, Facebook, Discord, YouTube, and TikTok. Now feel free to fast forward through these commercials so we can hop right back into the show. And we are back, so let's get back to it. I want to give props to some of the researchers too, that a lot of the time the researchers won't share the residential stuff. And I know a lot of people don't want to get that help that they need because they're scared that their story is just going to be publicized or thrown all over the internet. And of course, there probably are those teams out there that do that kind of stuff. But the majority of investigators that I've talked to that are the honest, true investigators, like if a residential case is supposed to be completely a secret, they won't say a word about it. So like props to those people. And again, if you're somebody that needs that help, don't be afraid to reach out to some of these teams, because not all of them are what you may think that they are.
Absolutely. Because a lot of times they'll come in and they'll be like, I keep hearing this tapping noise on the walls. And some of these paranormal investigators were like former construction or former plumbers or whatever. And they're like, oh, that's your pipes. Yeah, they're rattling. So you call a plumber tomorrow. I'll guarantee you there is no ghost. And, it's funny because they'll tell me like, it's nice that they can tell them that, but it's also like, we drove 2 hours for this. Okay. And I feel for them, because they're taking time out of their weekend to be like, oh, it's your pipes. And then they have to turn around and go back home, and they're disappointed that they don't have anything to share. And the owners are disappointed because they're kind of like, oh, I thought,
Or they might be relieved. They're like, all right, pipes, no haunting, no problem. Right? Yeah. That's easy to deal with.
Yeah, and you're relieved, but you're also kind of like, oh, because some people are like, hey, I can make a little money off of this. I'll put something out there and, charge people to come to investigate my house, charge them like $50.
You just got to make sure you're also a licensed plumber so that if that ever happens, you can still make money while you're there, because you can just fix the plumbing too. Two birds, one stone. Just make sure you guys have somebody for electric and somebody for plumbing on your team, and then, you should cover all the major bases for weird phenomenon, right?
I totally agree. See, that's what you need to do. There we go. There's $1 million idea right there, folks.
Flickering lights. All right, we'll have that guy check it out.
And the nice thing too is when I have psychics or psychic empaths on, and they always tell me the same thing, which is absolutely hilarious, is like, we can't do lottery numbers. We can't tell you how long you're going to be married. We can't tell you the man of your dreams is around the corner. It's like people ask them that all the time, and they're like, I can't tell you that. And I thought that's what they get a lot. They get a lot of, well, tell me how my finances are going to be like, tell me. I'm like, I don't think anybody could ever tell you that.
I think that falls into one of those things where it's like free will, because it's like there's the definite things that if you kind of believe that there's like a rhyme or reason to like your life and how things happen. There's like these set things that no matter what you do, you're going to come back and these things are going to happen. And I feel like that's the stuff they know. But if there's stuff that's completely up to free will, that, you know, you grab the right lottery ticket one day, or, you know, you talk to this right person one day and you go down this different path, like they can't necessarily judge those. They can guess those, which is a lot of what I think with a lot of the people that predict prophecies too, is that they can guess different options for timelines, but they don't know if that's the definite timeline, because there's these exact points that are going to happen and the rest kind of split.
Correct. Right. And, you know, the thing I've always found interesting from psychics and psychic empaths and mediums is they always say everyone has the skill. You're just not exploring it. They said, like, one of the psychics, she told me, like, first thing you want to do is learn how to, I can't remember the term again, but you can like see, like you can see things far away. So like, for example, you could like, you know, set your mind, imagine, and you could see maybe a hotel in Nevada, and you could draw the hotel and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's escaping me right now what I'm trying to the term that they use.
Like remote viewing almost?
Remote viewing. Thank you. Yes. Remote viewing. And then, you know, they start with that. A lot of them said, well, okay, we'll start on that skill. And a lot of people, after a while, they can develop that skill and they can do remote viewing, and then they can kind of see different things and use that skill. And then that starts to get other skills coming out. And that's what I found really interesting. They said, everyone has the skills. You just, you know, they lie dormant. You're not using them like anything. Like maybe you back in the day in high school was a really good hockey player, and then you kind of gave up on it. And now, you know, when your friends, hey, let's play some hockey, you're kind of like, or football or whatever, you're like, okay. And you're kind of tripping around. And then after a while, you're like, okay, cool. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, just to prove that people kind of have it too. I mean, one, I feel like might be a pretty good start for a lot of people, might be just learning how to like trust your gut or trust your intuition, because that seems to always steer you in the right direction. I've kind of developed this thing where if I trust my gut no matter what it is, because my gut has not steered me wrong once in life. So it's like the more thought and time I put into my gut, the more it always steers me right. Yes. And that kind of proves that people do have some type of, I don't want to necessarily say premonition, but like almost a way to like judge future events possibly. Like you get this like aura feeling and stuff from other people. So, I mean, for anybody that thinks that remote viewing might be too difficult of a start, I mean, even just trying to learn how to trust your gut and trust your intuition, like that's there for a reason. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then one of the things that I got from my mom, she could do that. She would meet people, and she was not judgmental at all. But she, something wrong with that person. I
do the same thing. And it always ends up popping up that something will come up down the line.
Yep. My mom would meet my girlfriends and be like, nope. And I'd be like, well, Mom, you don't even know her. What the? And then 3 months later, we'd break up.
I do that with my girlfriend, and I work at the same place, and we'll always have new people come in, and I'm always like, nope, that one's weird. And then like a couple weeks later, something will pop up that they're doing something weird and they're doing something sketchy. It's like, I'm always right with that.
Yeah. Same with me. And that when I was talking to these mediums and stuff, they said, see, that's a skill you can continue to develop. And she said, one of them about auras and about energy and everything. And she says, you know, be careful with that skill, because sometimes, you know, you become blinded too much, you know, and you might be like, oh, I don't like this person. She said that's usually it's two dominant energies bouncing off each other. And she said, actually, that might be a good thing. You might be best friends down the line. So she said, keep an open mind. One of my guests, you know, she was like, keep an open mind, but, you know, go with your gut. I totally get you on that one. But I do that all the time now. It much to my wife's chagrin. She's like, "Oh, you're just being judgmental on people," and I'm like, "Have I ever been wrong?" She's like, "No." There you go.
Exactly.
And it's weird, right? It's just it freaks you out because you meet someone, and it's just like you're kind of like, "Uh-oh, I think this is gonna be a problem." And then when you're right, you're like, "Oh man, this is creeping me out a little bit." Or you meet someone and you just immediately click. I mean, It's just weird. You just meet someone and you're like, hey, let's go and have lunch and let's go to a movie or whatever. Just hang out. And it's just, like you knew the person in a past life or something. That's just so bizarre.
See, I think it's one of those things that's a little bit more natural than what we give credit for, because it's like dogs and cats have that same ability. As soon as somebody comes in the house, they know if they like them instantly. And if somebody comes in and they're completely friendly, there's something weird about them. Your dog will start barking at them. They'll like won't sit next to them. They'll like stare at them and stuff too. So I think it's one of those things that like all animals had this natural ability to be able to judge. I don't want to necessarily say like energies, but I guess you could say energies. And it was just that humans kind of fell away from it because, you know, I've always made this excuse that we kind of developed more towards technology and away from our natural instincts of things. Yeah. So I do think that there's something a little bit more scientific to it. And I know a lot of people, you say auras, it sounds a little bit off, and then they don't really want to go down that path. But just an example that I use sometimes is like flowers, for example, they give off ultraviolet rays, and that's how bees know when to come and pollinate them. So who's to say that everything doesn't have some type of energy field around it? And you may not be able to see it necessarily. Some people may be able to see it once they develop that ability, but you can still sense it because there's a disturbance around that person, whether it's positive or negative. There is something about their like electromagnetic field or something that you are able to pick up on. It's just that if you're not tuned into that, then you don't know how to pick up on it properly. But every other animal that didn't develop with technology still has that ability to kind of smell somebody out and see if they're going to like them or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really cool. The other thing that on my podcast that really is interesting to me is when I've met people who talked about aliens and whether they're good or bad, and if they're infiltrating and doing terrible things, or they're trying to help us.
Or if they're demons. I've heard that one a lot lately too.
Demons, yeah. And I think that's super fascinating because one of the biggest things you always wonder is, again, you see movies, you know, it's like Independence Day and they're here to take over the planet, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, like, why would you? And one of the things I guess I should say, I saw this movie. I have Roku. So if you have Roku, I want you to check out this movie. And I should have got the title for it. But aliens take over the planet. It's a comedy, by the way. And they don't know what to do. They're like literally like taking over. They're like, what? You people are impossible. So they like hire this like goofy human to kind of help them kind of navigate how to talk to people and stuff. But the thing is, they accidentally killed people because people were trying to kill them. So their whole thing was self-defense. And it's like super funny. Like it's an indie movie. I don't think it's a title, but it's super funny because I think that's exactly aliens would be. I kind of talked to some of my guests on it. I'm be like, I think they would just be like, hey, you're trying to blow us up. So we're just self-defense. All right. So maybe if you listen to us.
Assumably, if they're a more advanced society, I feel like they are going to be more organized than we are. So when they deal with us, they're like, God, none of these people can get along. None of them can do the same thing. Like, what are we supposed to do with these people?
Exactly. Like, what are we supposed to do? Like, it's driving me crazy. And I think it's funny, but I think that's exactly what would happen. Aliens would take over and be like, man, this is a mess. Like, you guys are fucking nuts.
But on the other side, though, some people say that that's even like their interest in us is the fact that like we don't kind of have that hive mind mentality, which maybe eventually will develop, you know, once you become a more established race. But while where we're at now, it's like everybody's kind of chaotic and able to think for themselves. And maybe that's kind of their interest, is that it's like, you know, if you're going to study an animal, just to kind of bring it into another analogy, if you're going to study an animal and all of them do the same uniform thing all the time, it's like there's nothing to really figure out. You know, it's like this is what they do. They do this. They do this. They do this. But if you have this animal that's sporadic and just does whatever it wants, wherever, and depending on, you know, what its environment is, what's thrown in front of it, it does totally different things. And you could put 3 of them in the same situation. All of them are going to do different things. It's a lot more interesting to study. You know, like they might just do it for the sake of like, who knows what these things are going to do? They're wild cards. Like it's entertaining.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's to a point where I understand that some people who have said they've been abducted, like I had Karen Wilkinson on the show. I think you had her on your podcast also. And she was talking about how they made her feel and how terrible it was. And I'm like, I totally get that. And then I have other people on the show, like Leslie and Robert Shaw, and they're like, they're just trying to help us. They're trying to save our planet. And then, they're trying to do their best, and we're kind of, and then I've had other guests on too, who have been like, I don't know, maybe not. So I don't think anyone's come to a uniform, I don't know, consensus of what they're trying to do.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. And we are back. So let's hop right in. I mean, there might be factions too on the other side too, that it's like they may somewhat think together as groups better than like humans do, but that doesn't mean that there's not different factions within them that have different interests. Kind of like we were talking about earlier. Like, you can't assume that every single one of an entire race is all going to have the same purpose that they're trying to do. Like, assumably there's going to be division within that group still.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then the other thing we talk about, not a lot, because really there's just two major cryptids. We don't talk a lot of cryptids, even though I love to talk cryptids. Really, there's kind of, I don't know, like Bigfoot, which has been done to death, in my opinion. Not to say it isn't interesting still. And then, like you have Michigan Dog Man, we have the Beast of Bray Road, there's the Goat Man, there's, other ones out there. But it again, there's not a lot of people who can, with the exception of Bigfoot and maybe Dog Man and Beast of Bray Road here in Wisconsin, who is more like a werewolf. So it's kind of like you get like a Bigfoot, then you kind of get like a werewolf, and then you kind of get like in this weird area of Goat Man and snakes. And
I mean, the little people, though, is something I always do take into consideration, though, because if you look at just evolution through time, like there's been islands with like miniature elephants on it. There's been other places with giant sloths. Like there's been different sizes within animals. So, I mean, at least within cryptozoology, I feel like you do have to consider like the little people concept, because we do see people that are little people. Yeah, you do see people that end up developing to be smaller. So assumably, if you have a group of people that are all breeding with each other and they're all carrying that smaller genetic, they're going to stay on that small side. So I believe that there could definitely be pockets of little people. Maybe not like, I mean, definitely take in the possibility there could be like stuff like puckwudgies and stuff, but especially when you talk about like the little people they talk about that are in the middle of the Amazon and stuff like that, like you really have to consider those are just a different developed group of humans. But
absolutely. And we have one of the biggest things is here in Wisconsin, we have a place called Haunchyville, and Haunchyville is known for their little people. And the story goes, there are like, again, I'm trying not to be politically incorrect, but they're dwarfs, and they have this big albino giant, basically, which could be our sizes, protecting them. And people have seen that. I had from American Ghost Walks on Mike Huberty on my show, and he lived around that area, and he was walking around that area, and he said, like, it was just weird. Like there are buildings in Wisconsin, like these really kind of cute little buildings for like gnomes or something, you want to say? Maybe that's a better word. And people are like, oh, it's just whatever, it's just kind of a fun little thing. But people still talk about it. And what's fascinating to me is, like you said, in Haunchyville, it's an urban legend. It's a mythical village of little people in the woods near Muskego, Wisconsin. And he says basically these little people, I'm just reading it right now, they have like an old albino man for their protections, and
he's actually like a golem or something.
Yeah, I would say, we could go with that. Sure. Nobody's really seen him, but people swear they see tracks and people, whatever. But I'm like, that's interesting. Pretty fascinating of why they would want to stay out of the public eye. Because imagine if someone does catch one, it's going to be pretty groundbreaking. I mean, scientifically, obviously, people are going to be like, whoa, this is pretty interesting. And unfortunately, one of the things, I'm glad they don't catch Bigfoot, because in my opinion, probably the first thing they would do is dissect him, or her, or whatever you want to say.
Theoretically, if they did find a Bigfoot, I almost kind of wonder if they wouldn't, if they hit it, they'd be able to do stuff to it. But if the general public knew about it, I wonder if it would fall into somewhere where it's close enough to human-like that people would fight for the fact that it might have the same type of rights as like a human would have because of its intelligence level. You know what I mean? Like where you wouldn't be able to dissect it unless, again, the government kept it secret, like all these alien autopsy type videos, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So like anything, I think, and you've seen these pictures, obviously, most of them are fake. But some are true where they catch these giant fish or they catch these lizards that supposedly have been, supposed to be extinct for, since the Paleozoic era or Jurassic era or whatever's era. And they find them and they're like, wow, ooh, interesting. And then, of course, what do? Of course, they're dead. Or so they say they were dead. And then, they're going to just dissect them, right? They're just going to be like, hey, why is this? And you're like, oh, my God. Why don't you just learn how this, but that's a whole different podcast. I guess, so.
At that point, it's like, you might as well just try to keep it alive if you do find it alive, even for the sake of just seeing if you can get it to reproduce to try to bring the species back. If it's not a species, it's going to just destroy everything in its path.
Yeah. Right.
You don't need a Jurassic Park happening here because once those get out, I mean, how are you going to control that?
Yeah, right. You're not. I mean, even in the movies makes sense. You're just not. I mean, you just can't. Even you're like, well, we're going to put them on an island and we're just going to put a bunch of cages around. I mean, what?
Eventually they're going to swim. There's going to be ones in the water. They're going to lay eggs in places that you don't know where those eggs are at. Like, it's kind of like dealing with a pest in your yard. It's like, unless you get rid of every egg, they're going to pop back up somewhere.
Yeah. I mean,
life will find a way, as they say in the movie.
Yeah. It's like the same thing with the Burmese python in Florida. People took it as a pet. And then they're like, holy crap, this thing's getting big and it's eating like rats and my cat, whatever. And now I got to get rid of it. So that's why they pay. I don't know if they still do, but at one time they're paying people $50 to kill these things per python, There
was a thing a while ago during Hurricane Katrina. There was a snake breeding facility that got destroyed in Florida. And they say that one was one of the main reasons why they have a problem with Burmese pythons now in Florida is because of a few different snake breeding facilities getting destroyed during the last round of big hurricanes.
Yeah. Right. So then it kind of takes me back to full circle. Okay, maybe there's cryptids out there that we didn't even know about that people were working on in secrecy, whether it be government or personal, and they escaped. And that's what explains some of these strange things. I don't know, but it's interesting to me for people to talk about it and, give their kind of advice about it.
I mean, that's one of the hard things is I think that a lot of this stuff is multifaceted, especially like the Dogman stuff since we brought it up. Like I definitely take into consideration like secret government experiments, it being something that is a little bit maybe more flesh and blood and also kind of getting into like the possible supernatural, paranormal type side of it. I mean, it could be coming from all three places and we're all just kind of keeping it as the same phenomenon when it's actually three different things that just look similar. Or on the other side, it is definitely one of these three things, but it's like, it's hard to ever figure it out because also on the other side too, if there are sightings of this weird creature that it's naturally there in the woods, then you know that with current government technology, and I mean, I've said this a million times, we've been cloning goats or sheep since the 90s that we know of, like assumably they are going to try to make something like this just for the sake of doing it. And I've made this argument a million times too. It's like, if you are some type of government body and you wanted to say take out a village or take out a base or something like that, you don't want to have any tie back to you that you were the one that sent out the hit job. What do? You make 3 Dogman like things, you drop it into a military base, it takes out the entire base, turns into this folklore legend that nobody really like believes it in the normal mainstream, and you just took out a base with no tie back to you. Like it completely makes sense strategically to try to develop some type of beast mode creature you can just drop in on an area, because everybody's heard the super soldier concept, and I feel like it would be better than doing the super soldier concept, because with that, you're experimenting on people. If you're making these humanoid animal type creatures, essentially like there's no government ID to that. Not that the government necessarily cares about every single person they send out into battle like that, but there's less tie back and blowback on them, and there's less crying families at home if they can just drop something out there and then just call it a day. It's like the future of war is turning into drones and some type of biological drones, which seems to be part of also the UFO phenomenon.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things was really interesting. I was reading this interesting book about military technology, and one of the things, and whether this is true or not, would not surprise me, is this general. His son was watching the movie Predator. So if you're not familiar with the movie Predator,
I don't know where you've been.
yeah, I don't know where you've been, but let's break it down really quickly. It's about this alien that comes down, and they're basically these hunters, and they can turn themselves they can cloak themselves, and they're badasses. Go watch the movie with
They're
Arnold.
extraterrestrial trophy hunters, essentially.
Yeah. And watch if you like the first Predator, don't watch Predator 2. That's caravan of garbage.
I did like the end scene though, where it showed the ship and it had the xenomorph. That was like the best scene from that entire movie. It was just seeing the xenomorph on the ship.
Yeah. And right. And then watch Alien versus Predator. That's a kind of a weird, fun concept. It's no brainer. But anyway, supposedly the general came back into the military, whatever, guys who are the research and development guys, and said, I want that. And pointed to the Predator technology. And I'm thinking, that's super interesting, because you can do that. Now today you can. And it's part of the things with like camouflage, not to say regular soldiers would ever have that, but part of the thing with camouflage is when out in the desert, they matched it to the certain of the desert's colors and everything. So when a soldier is out there, especially a sniper, it's really hard to see them. And that's because they use technology to basically blend into the sand. And then also there's ghillie suits. Those are for snipers who are in a more lush vegetation area where you don't even know where they are.
They just look like a bush.
So you know what I mean? So this technology. And then also I heard stories, if you've seen Avatar, everyone has seen Avatar. If you haven't, I don't know what planet you're on. But in Avatar, where they had those giant machines fighting the different tribes and everything, and they had the big knives and stuff. Soldiers have said they have seen those, and they've seen them pick up like a car and tear it apart. And they see it with these huge batons, which would have like shock things. So like the army feels that once again society starts to collapse, you march these things out with these giant batons. Holy crap. I mean, that's going to be crazy. And soldiers have sworn they've seen these and have come on different shows and have written in different articles, I have seen these.
I mean, isn't that just predictive programming at a certain point? Because, I mean, the Predator suit, I almost feel like it wasn't somebody said, I want to develop that. It was, they already had it developed, and then they had to put it into a movie so that if somebody sees it, they go, oh, what'd you see? And they're seeing, oh, I saw that thing that looked like that Predator movie. Then most people are like, oh, you saw something from a sci-fi movie? And then, the credibility kind of goes out the window. Like, I think they purposely do this predictive programming where they'll put these ideas in movies so that people relate them to movies. And then the general public is going to go, oh, that's just a sci-fi concept. The cloaking thing, and even the cloak of invisibility or whatever from Harry Potter, it kind of functions somewhat the same. Right. But I mean, it can completely make sense that they would develop that as a biosuit, because what not a better way to be able to do it than if you were able to reflect exactly what you were seeing back. And even on the other side, the people that see these things out in the woods while they're hunting and stuff, is that just a matter of testing these things out active out in the field just to see if they'll work? If there's a military base nearby, they're like, all right, take one of the biosuits and see if you can get past some hunters. And they just, because even on the other side, if you're a hunter and you see something moving, you don't know what the heck it is. You may not take that shot at that. And even if you're, somebody on the battlefield, you don't know what something is, especially, depending on where you're at. If you're in a country that's a little bit more on the spiritual side, if they see something like that, they might not shoot at it right away because they're like, I don't know what the hell that is. I'm not trying to piss that thing off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. But before we get into this commercial break, if anybody is interested in supporting the show or any of the work I do over here, you guys can go and check out the OMM Patreon. Over there is 7-day free trials available for all of the tiers, and it is constantly updating with new shows and different stuff going on. You guys can also go and check out the OMM merch store, constantly getting updated with new designs, not just pertaining to the podcast themselves, but also cryptid, paranormal, and extraterrestrial related designs. And the third way you guys can support the show, if you guys think I deserve it, is that you guys can leave a 5-star review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify. And if you guys leave a 5-star review, of course, I will read on the show and give you guys a big shout out. Now let's get to the commercial break so we can hop back in the show. And we are back. So let's hop right in.
So again, I just love talking about these topics and love having people on to discuss them and give their viewpoint. And most, if not all, everyone has a great viewpoint. I've been very lucky to not get a little strange person. I've had a couple of people reach out to me.
They're all strange in a good way, but the ones that are off the deep end.
yeah, strange in a good way, where I've been like, okay, well, you believe that. And, a couple have said that they can inhabit people's bodies and stuff. I'm like, okay. I'm like, maybe a little too far about where we're going with that one. But it's like, it's strange in a good way. I want to get to know these people a little bit more before I have them on the show. And just because, some people just want to get on a podcast just to be like, hey, I have an alien, like I said, or a UFO in my closet. And it's, and maybe they really do, but maybe we need to talk a little bit more before I have you on the show.
I need a little bit of something, man.
yeah. You give me something, and again, I get it. And the thing is too, what I think is fascinating is we have so much technology. It's so easy to fake stuff. It's so easy to believe it. And that's one of the things all my guests have said. That sucks. I get it. You want to get clicks. You want to get, make some money, but stop ruining it for the rest of us. Just put a disclaimer. Just put, this is
entertainment purposes only.
Entertainment purposes only. Exactly. Enjoy it. Awesome. I'll watch that. But don't be like, yes, see, there's the demon right there. And, whatever. And someone does a really good job. They know how to manipulate certain programs and everything, whether it be, Photoshop or different AI. And you're like, ooh.
You'd probably make more money off the fake stuff anyways, because if you do it good enough, you might get picked up by a studio or something, you never know. But if you're making Mark Malls, they're all real, then, you don't have those same opportunities.
Yeah. I like that one kid who did some 18-year-old kid, and he filmed at this like abandoned furniture store. And you probably have seen it, I think, where these people in like biohazard suits are like walking these hallways, and then they're kind of walking through, and it just kind of goes just like, it seems like this maze. Like this
it looks like the back rooms. That's what they're
back rooms. Thank you. Yes, the back rooms. And some people believe that's real, that the kid was just like, that's what the government told him. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But I think it takes great imagination to do something like that, and to have it, to say like, hey, let's explore, something like this that is interesting. And again, that's fine if you want to do that. If you want to make entertainment, please do, anything that we can kind of look at. But then again, like I said, some people took it and was like,
I think people got by the whole like simulation theory concept, because it's like, assumably, if there's a simulation, if the world is a simulation, which I definitely get behind this theory a lot, because I definitely find it very fascinating and it seems to link up with a lot of stuff. But, on the other side of it, there is going to be a back to the system, and whether or not we're inside of a system, so there wouldn't be what we see as physical would be like our reality, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's physical to the reality outside of it. We may be some type of generated computer program, but on the other side of it, if we are in some type of like, for example, like an augmented reality or something where, we're inside of, say, like what you see in sci-fi movies where it's just like a big open room and then everything renders itself on the inside of it, then there is going to be some type of like a back rooms to that. But it kind of depends on the way you view the whole simulation theory. But I think that's where people get got with that one, is connecting it in with simulation theory.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So like I said, once you take a look at once you take a listen to our podcast, I think you'll have fun and enjoy it. And then, I always tell people, please bring something, you make a comment, if you want some guest on, I'm always open to that. I'm always open to talking to people. As long as you have something interesting to say and you got some type of, I shouldn't say accreditation, but maybe you're a paranormal group, or maybe you did something for a while. Maybe you don't agree with this anymore. Maybe you're on a paranormal group for like, I don't know, a few years, and you're like, no, it's not real. Great. Come on the show. Love to talk to you.
And while we're talking about experiences too, before we end up running out of time here, I want to dive into your couple of experiences you have. So I don't know exactly where we want to start with it, what your earliest experience was, but I'd love to dive into your experiences.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things, Shayn and I were talking about this, I thought was really interesting was when I was around Halloween and everything, my wife bought this witch doll, for lack of a better word. And, it was just whatever. No big deal. It didn't really scare you or anything, but it made me feel weird. Like something was off about it.
When you say witch doll, like how would you describe, like, what did this thing physically look like?
It's like the typical ugly witch doll, kind of like with an ugly face. And
so it was like a doll of a witch, not like a witch's doll where it kind of has that voodoo look. That's where I was kind of trying to differentiate it at.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes, thank you for clarifying, Shayn. Anyway, it just seemed weird and everything. So one night I was sleeping, and this is the only time I had sleep paralysis. I woke up and there was this mist coming down. And when it got closer to me, I could see a face of like an old hag, pretty much the standard, how you would view an old hag. And it was really, I couldn't move, and I was straining to move and everything, to finally, I turned myself over and I started speaking Latin. And I don't really know Latin except for the cheesy stuff in Hollywood movies. I was like, Dominator. And all of a sudden there was like this wave that came out of me, like this powerful wave. And in the kitchen, I could hear where the doll was. I could hear like boom, 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 like somebody fell, like somebody was pushed down. And so I got up and did the stupid horror movie, tripe thing to do and cliche. I went into the kitchen, and in the middle of the kitchen floor was the doll of the witch. I didn't touch it or anything. I just felt, really weird, and there was something wrong. And I went in and back into the bedroom. My wife was still fast asleep. My wife could wake up when I just like turned my pillow over, and she's like, "Oh, you woke me up again." Yeah, okay. And she never woke up. So the next day, I told my wife, "Hey, where's that doll?" Because I didn't touch it or anything. And I said, "Where's that doll?" My wife just kind of went, "Oh, yeah, I decided that just kind of put it away." And I'm like, "Well, why'd you do that? Did you hear what I went through? Did you hear that? And this happened?" And I tell you, shadow. My wife's like, "No." And just to let you know, my wife's not really into the paranormal.
She watched this doll stand up and walk across the doorway, and she was like, "Nope." And then in her head, she's like, "I didn't see that. I just had to get rid of it."
And she did. That's exactly what she do. Like, I didn't see that. The doll levitated, broad red eyes. My wife would be like, didn't see it.
Fingers in the ears. La, 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 la. I see nothing.
You shall die, shall swallow your soul. And you're like, did.
You can't scare me if I didn't see you.
I didn't see you.
Inquiries of All Reality will be back after this brief commercial break. But just a quick reminder, don't forget to go and check out the awesome sponsors of the show: IKNOWSQUATCH, Cryptoteeology, Snarly Owl Natural Products, Oregon-ite, Dimension Devices, and Big Ape Threads. More information and discounts for those are all available down in the show description. Now feel free to fast forward through these commercials so we can hop right back into the show. And we are back, so let's get back to it.
The funny thing is, on my show on Dairyland Frights, I've talked to mediums and empaths and paranormal investigators, everybody has said the same thing: sage it, get rid of it, get it out of the house. I'm like, okay. So next Halloween comes up.
I got to ask real quick before you get into the following story too. When you were speaking Latin after this thing, did it seem like something was like controlling you? Did it almost feel like you somehow knew these words? And also, did it seem like it was like a positive thing trying to get it to stop? Or does it seem like it was kind of flowing in with the experience as possibly like a negative part of the experience?
It was it felt like I knew it. It felt like there was just a part of me that got awakened, right? Like again, a kind of a weird thing to say, like a sleeper agent. Like you just use the words. Let's use the Marvel thing, like
because most people kind of associate Latin with demons, but on the other side, it's like when you're doing an exorcism, you speak Latin, so it's like people have that bad view, but I feel like it can be kind of used either way. But those are like where the power in the words seem to be is within Latin.
Absolutely. So it just felt like something inside of me that was being awoken that just came out. Can I explain it? No, I've never explained it to this day. I don't know how I did it.
Did it seem like something trying to protect you though, or did it seem like something negative? So something positive then.
Absolutely. Something was trying to protect me. Absolutely. Something was trying to help me. And the thing is, like I've said, I believe in witches and warlocks and the whole nine yards. And I've met people before I went on my podcast and had some interesting conversations. I have another story on that, that maybe, let me switch it here because I didn't get to tell you this story, but anyway, finish up the story that Dow has never been back in our house or anything like that. And that reminds me of a story that I've only told a couple times. And I won't tell my other story I told you offline because I think this has a better relation to it because I wasn't sure how to make a paranormal experience out of this one, even if it wasn't, other than people have told me, hey, this happened. So really quickly, when I was about in my 20s, me and my buddies, like I said, we're into the paranormal. My buddy moved to South Carolina for a job. I went to go visit him. And this you'll see is a related story. I went to visit my buddy and we went on a ghost hunting, not a ghost hunting, excuse me, on a like a ghost event, basically. It was just at this farmhouse, like, you know what I mean? Where they have like, okay, we're going to do a ghost hayride kind of thing like that. And so I went to this thing in the South Carolina farmhouse. At this farmhouse, the gentleman, this is like in the 1800s, the guide was telling us in the 1800s, this family man had met this woman. They kind of were fooling around together. And then, of course, the husband had to say, okay, we need to end the affair. We need to stop. And when he told her that, she hung herself, unfortunately, in the barn. And she still is a ghost in this barn. And some terrible things were happening to the family of this farmer who had the affair with this woman, but nothing bad happened to him. Okay. So anyway, she was showing us around. We go into the barn and she's a psychic empath. And so we go into the barn and she says, okay, Sarah, who's the woman who hung herself, she is here to warn you, everyone. When you come into this barn, some people and you're fine to walk out because some people get sick, they get scratches, they get bruises. She goes, if you don't want to go in, do not go in. So being the stupid 23-year-old me and my buddy, we saw pictures of this woman. They had pictures of the family and the woman, and she was an attractive woman. So being that I'm young and not married and, you get the idea, I walk in there and the first thing I'm like, hey, baby, like, let's see what you got. And the guide is like looking at us like, oh, you little, and, my buddy's like, yeah, let's go. Woo. We're all doing stupid stuff. And we go in there. And as soon as we go in there, it just seems weird. Something, again, seems off. And all of a sudden our guide goes, Sarah. And then he goes, okay, everyone, Sarah's here. Don't worry. I'm protecting you. You're going to be fine. And everybody's like, oh, and me and my buddy are like, yeah, And so.
Got to protect Sarah from me.
yeah. It's really stupid, Anyway, so we're sitting there. And then all of a sudden she goes, Sarah, stop. Sarah, no. And she goes, sir, Sarah's in front of you right now. Don't worry, you'll be fine. And suddenly she goes, Sarah, you need to stop. you stop. She says, sir, okay, if you feel a little weird, you're going to be fine. She's not going to hurt you. Okay. I'm like, okay, whatever, come on. I'm like, let's kiss, baby. And it got his stupid stuff, right? And the guy is like, oh, will you stop, And so anyway, we get out of there. Nothing happens. I felt a little weird, felt like some weird energy, but yeah, nothing I thought was bad. So I get home and I'm getting ready for bed. And my buddy goes, what is that on your shoulder? And it's this red mark. And it's a weird kind of, it looks like a symbol almost. And my buddy goes, oh man, you got bit by a bug or something or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not itching or anything. This is really weird. And I don't think anything of it. Go home and everything. 2 weeks later, it's still there. Really bright red and everything. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And of course, my mom's like, well, you got to go to the doctor. It's probably a bad rash or something. And I go to the doctor. He looks at it and goes, yeah, I'm not sure what it is. Probably just the rash. You'll be called. Does it itch? Does it make you feel bad? No, I'm good. Okay. So months later, it's still there. And I go and I talk to some of my friends who are, again, the paranormal. And they're like, yeah, it looks like a symbol. That's so weird. And then one of my friends who knows a psychic empath, they go like, well, let me just take you to her. Just have her check you out. You can't hurt, right? Yeah, sure. So I go to her and the woman looks at it and she goes, oh, I know what that is. You're protected. And I'm like, what? And she goes, that's witch's symbol for protection. And she goes, no evil will ever befall you. Now, evil spirit, she said, and everything. Like, you're fine. And I'm like, I am? She goes, yeah, you're good. And she opened a book and she like showed me, yeah, it's this right here. Yeah, you're good. Well, the weird thing is you can't really see it anymore. Only when it gets really cold out. My wife has seen it when, I've come in from like, unfortunately, I'm in Wisconsin and I'm shoveling and I've come in, I take it off my shirt. My wife has seen it and I've explained it to her and she's like, okay, whatever. But I've asked other psychics to kind of look at it around the area. They're like, oh yeah, it's just protection. You're fine and everything. So that's what kind of tied into when I had this event with maybe been a cursed doll or something, that was my protection.
That symbol like took control of you or something like that.
Yeah. It was just really, really interesting. And again, everyone I've spoken to, they've said, because it's faded, you can't really see it that much anymore. They're like, no, it's still there. And I said, do I need to get it recharged like a battery? And they're like, no, it's still going to be there. You'll be fine.
See, I'm curious now if that medium put that on you because of whatever Sarah was doing. And on the other side, I'm kind of curious what Sarah was doing now. Was she like sitting there trying to punch you as a ghost? Like, what was she doing? Like, I'm curious.
Yeah, that's what I always wondered too. I always wonder, like, yeah, she was like, she did something to protect me because Sarah's like gonna strangle me, or something, you know what I'm saying? And she's like, oh shit, I gotta protect this idiot.
Or she thought you were handsome, so she gave you a ghost hickey, and it just happened to be a protection symbol. She's like, I'm going to protect this man by giving him a ghost hickey.
I love that. Yeah, so that's experience I think was really interesting. That to this day, do I say it's paranormal? Is it strange? Yes. Is it different? Yes. But again, it hasn't really kept me, because I've had some bad things happen to me. But as far as when I feel like evil or something, or feel like something's weird going on, whether I'm in a certain area, I never feel scared. I never feel nervous. So that's something, I always like sharing with people that sometimes, maybe a ghost is good for you, or a witch is good for you. So,
I mean, on the other side too, it seems like I've always been afraid that, like, say you get some type of like solid protection that's like some kind of infinite protection, that it might keep all experiences away from you. But on the other side, is it one of those things too where like some other spirits might almost see it as like a challenge, so maybe you'll have more experiences. Like, that's always kind of been my back and forth with protection, because it's like, of course, everybody wants to be protected, but on the other side, it's like, I don't want to be too protected where I'm never going to have an experience again,
Right. So, yeah, so that's interesting. So that's, kind of some of my stories that have happened to me. And like everyone, I've seen like shadows or whatever, but nothing major after that.
And again, it might just be because of that symbol, like one tried to mess with it and they were like, all right, it's not working. So they just hit the road and that's where that witch doll went. She's like, I can't do anything to these people. One doesn't want to believe, so she won't even look at me. And the other one's protected. What am I going to do in this house?
Hell with it. I'm out.
She popped up at your neighbor's house and they've been dealing with her ever since. And they just are too afraid to tell you about it because they don't know where this thing came from. They don't want to sound crazy, but it's right next door.
Yeah, it's gonna be funny because I've been neighbors for them for years. I just can't wait till they move out sometime, and the new people come in and they're like knocking on my door oh my God, there's demons and stuff in this house. Get us out of here.
One year you're gonna be walking down your street during Halloween. You're gonna see it just in the front yard of somebody's Halloween display, and you're gonna be like, "That's where it is." You're gonna be walking home, and you'll just see it sitting on Halloween decorations all the way home.
That's exactly right, man. There it went. Oh man, that's too awesome.
And it's like, nope, he's still protected. Gotta look for another family. Goes the other neighbor.
Yeah. Like, there he is. I see this. I can scare the crap out of this guy. Oh man.
Great white buffalo. It's the one that got away.
Damn it. We'll get him. We'll get him one of these days.
Hold tight, guys. This is the last break, so stay tuned. And we are back, so let's hop right in. And kind of wrapping up towards the end, I always like to wrap up the show with words of wisdom. So if there was any words of wisdom you could bestow on the listeners, be it to, other paranormal investigators, people going through experiences, whoever you want to direct it towards, what might your words of wisdom be?
Yeah, so my words of wisdom would be is don't fool around with things you don't know. So even if you don't believe, and I'll use Ouija boards. Ouija boards, nobody really knows if they do anything or they don't. So when you invite things in, and this is just from combined knowledge, into your home, and even if it's not a Ouija board, even if it's something just negative, like you have a negative viewpoint on everything or a negative personality, I recommend please get some help right away, whether it's supernatural or not, because, the biggest thing I see, Shayn, is there's a lot of people out there who have brought things into their house, again, like I said, supernatural or not, where they're suffering. And you just got to be like, get some help. It doesn't hurt to call a paranormal investigator in your area, to go to a medium as long as you do the research. And if not, you can reach out to me if you're looking confused at dairylandfrights@gmail.com. I know plenty of great people I've interviewed over the couple years I've been on, and I'll put you onto there. So that's what I say to people. Don't let it fester. If there's something weird going on in the house, you want to get checked out, get it checked out. If there's a lot of negativity in your house, just work together and try to get therapy or try to get some help and try to help those people. And it could be a number of different things. So that's what I say to people. Don't let it rest. Don't let it get worse, because really it just hurts too many people. And those are people you love and care for, and you don't want to see them be hurt by anything for that matter. So those are my words of wisdom for people.
Just like most things, you can't ignore it. You got to nip it in the bud, because if you ignore it, the problem just ends up getting worse over time.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, don't be afraid to be like, I think there's a demon in my house. Okay. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but
let's check it out.
Let's check it out. Right. Let's go in there and check it out. And again, if it's just something where there's just a lot of negativity in the house and just a lot of people are down about something or dealing with certain addictions, just please get help. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And again, if it's not a demon, good. That's so much the better. Now you can sleep well at night and or maybe get the help you need. That's going to make you a better person and really protect the ones that you love.
And at the end of the day, if it ends up being some pipes or some electrical issue, you might as well just ask the paranormal investigating team if they happen to be an electrician or a plumber. I mean,
absolutely. Or they have recommendations.
Get it all dealt with all at once and call it a day.
Boom. Then it's all done. You got your pipes fixed, you got your attitudes fixed, you got your demon fixed. Everybody's fixed. Now you can go on with your lives and do what you love.
And if anybody wanted to come and check out your podcast, all the awesome stuff you do, find you on the internet, share their experiences with you, any of that, where can people get up with you at?
Yeah, so I am everywhere. So you can find me on Facebook at dairylandfrights.com. You can find me on Instagram. You can email me, dairylandfrights@gmail.com. Also, I'm on X and I'm also on YouTube. Yeah, feel free to reach out. Feel free to, if you want some guests, if you disagree with me and you want to come on, please do. I would love that, because again, that makes us all better. That we learn from each other and we can, have some good points. And we sometimes agree to disagree. That's okay too.
Ain't that the truth? And enough people need to learn that enough in this world that just to get along with somebody, you don't always have to agree, because there's way too much division in this world. So we don't need more. People are allowed to have different opinions. And at the end of the day, you can all come together. It's just people get too wrapped up in their emotions and they forget that you can have just a conversation with somebody that has opposing views of you.
Absolutely. Love it.
And I appreciate you making the time to come on today, man. It was a lot of fun, really, really fun conversation. We'll have to come back around to this again at some point. And just another reminder to all the listeners out there, if they enjoyed this episode, don't forget to go and check out the episode that we did on your show last week.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shayn. I really enjoyed this too. And yes, I would love to come on. I haven't got to portals yet, and I haven't got to like multi-universes and doppelgangers. Oh man, I got a lot of stuff.
Say you and me both, man. That's like the thing with being a podcaster is you have all these different show ideas that you want to do, and it's just a matter of making the time to get to all of them. But you will eventually, as long as you stick with the show.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I want to do sometime is I do want to do the Satanic Panic. If you've already done it, I would love to have different podcasters on to talk about the Satanic Panic, because that is something that to this day drives me crazy that people went to jail for that. Is insanity, and people ruin their lives over that. Just, I don't know. It's an interesting topic. I know it's been kind of done to death with like Memphis 3 and stuff like that, but I think it's something that I still would love to talk about sometime and have a great discussion. And if we disagree, we disagree. That's fun too.
Hey, it's one of those things too that it's like every few years you got to bring it back up just to keep it in the forefront so people are thinking about it. So it's like things will go in pockets where people talk about stuff for a lot, but once you go a couple months in between, even if you're repeating information, sometimes people enjoy hearing it again just to refresh themselves.
Absolutely. Get a different viewpoint.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome.
If anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can get a hold of me through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram or Facebook are the two that I am the most active on. Or you guys can get a hold of me through the submission forms, which are available on the Linktree. There are two of them. So the first one is to contact me, and the second one is to report an encounter to ommencounterreports@outlook.com. So while you're there, might as well do both. Or if you guys want to, you guys can also call into the hotline, and that number is 313-364-1551. And every single thing that I mentioned throughout the show is all available in the Linktree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality, and I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're interested in